Thank you guys for joining us today. I got a refresh of my coffee. All right, so I think really important is, we're built on Salesforce, Benelinx is, and historically we have focused on post-sales, clients, existing clients, right? And managing your existing client base with managing the process of your clients and renewing them, as well as the demographics of your businesses and or individuals, um, and the products that you're selling, services and policies, as well as customer service requests. So what I love about this session is that we're bringing in then the core Salesforce sales feature, which really in a life cycle of a client is where your clients start. And so I like the idea of talking through this so that our existing clients understand if we started out with just the Benelinx agency management and the commissions, we have the option obviously of the sales side of it. And that really brings then that full life cycle. When do we first meet the client, the potential client? What process do we go through to get them sold? That transition then from your prospect to an actual client, and that handoff between our sales and our service. And obviously then being inside of Salesforce, the core feature of where Salesforce started at least, was the sales side. So we're going to talk through a lot of the native features that Salesforce gives us with their sales app. Um, but really important pieces, right? Part of our agency, we always have our sales team, and our executive team. So we're always going to want to loop in kind of that process and standardize it, as agencies grow and get larger. The owner only, sales team, usually grows so that it's extended to your actual sales employees, and the importance of understanding how do we prospect, but also then what is our sales pipeline? How do we manage that process? And what does that look like? And then, like I mentioned, conversions. We're going to break down the components that Salesforce provides us, and talk about what's the difference between a lead, in the Salesforce system versus an opportunity. And when would I use both? When would I use one? Some of our agent partners are only using opportunities. When would we want to add in that lead option? And then really, really important are all the automations that go with it. So sales application, I'm going to pivot, and we're going to start going through the details and I'm going to talk through. So I'm going to move this off screen here, so we can start looking at the system. So let's start with the highest level like we always do, which is looking at our application. So Salesforce 101, right? We have different apps here. So as you can see, this is our demo site, but our traditional agency management application, is what we're providing all of our clients, as well as our commissions if you buy that feature. And now we can see that we actually have a sales app as well. So ISV versus OEM clients, clients that already had Salesforce before they came to us, or they bought Salesforce direct, versus OEM clients, which are clients that we sell and manage the Salesforce features and licenses, as well as the Benelinx managed package. So either one, we can add in this sales app. This is your standard Sales Cloud application that Salesforce provides, and a lot of the base infrastructure and the core architectural design is coming from Salesforce, right? Where Benelinx is solely built, and the agency management app is solely built by Benelinx. But we've brought in a lot of customization specific to our industry and a lot of automation. So we'll talk through that. But you can see here the value of having an application versus having it all embedded in my agency management. Okay. Couple things about this, as you can see, that the application, I can pivot back to my agency management app. Obviously, different items on my navigation bar, really focusing heavily on the service side of the business. When I pivot back to my sales app, you can see it's, much more condensed. There are different objects and more limited visibility. Why can this be helpful? It's just like any other application. It's all the same database. It's all Salesforce, right? We're not teleporting you into another database. So the visibility of the same records is the same. If I'm in the sales side and I'm looking at an account, same account that my account management can see on the agency management site. But the value of having an application is then we're limiting visibility and it's really honing in and focusing your sales team on the records that are relevant to them, right? Once that's transitioned and it's sold, everybody celebrates, and it's transitioned now to your support team, right? And they're moving on to the next opportunity they're going to be working. So this gives us that isolated preview and really hyper focusing the sales team on the sales side of the system. Other things to note is accounts and contacts. Something I talk about extensively, especially with our ISV clients, is that when we go into your world, if you already have Salesforce, you've had it in the past, we're going to go into your world. We're carefully inserting Benelinx into your Salesforce ecosystem, right? What's really important about that is that we're sharing accounts and contacts. That same concept applies. If you don't have the sales app now and you want to add it, don't worry, the accounts and contacts are universally the same. Nobody owns accounts and contacts other than Salesforce, right? So if I'm using the sales app, those accounts and contacts are going to be identical. That helps us eliminate the duplication of records, right? I don't want a prospect, Bob's Bakery to be a different record than when it gets converted into a sold client, Bob's Bakery. Same thing. These are both accounts. Now we're going to be able to use that universal one record and we're going to convert it instead of create duplicates, right? Sales side and support side are going to be looking at the same records, accounts and contacts. No duplication of records, which is the whole point, right? We want to unify that so we have visibility without having two separate systems where they don't talk. And now we've got two versions of Bob's Bakery. One is a prospect and one is as a sold client. We don't want that and we don't have to worry about that. Because again, universally, accounts and contacts are shared with everybody. Nobody owns them. Um, Other elements of why would I be using this sales app? As you can see, again, we've got specific objects, leads, opportunities, campaigns. There's objects that you're purchasing that gives you access to those additional objects. And I will note that this is going to be enterprise licenses with Salesforce. So whether you purchase them directly through us or you go Salesforce direct to get access to these specific objects and open up the system a little bit more, it's going to be that enterprise level license. The platform licenses are what is being used to run Benelinx, the agency management. The higher, more expensive licenses are required for you to have your sales team have access to some of these, again, standard native Salesforce objects. Good news is, I talk about a lot about this with prospects and new clients, is that we can mix and match licenses. So if you're going to Salesforce Direct and you're like, yeah, I want to add the sales app, I'm ready. I got my agency management already set, then you can mix and match, meaning you can buy the enterprise licenses only for your sales team and the rest of your agency management service team can be working off of the platform license, which is a lot less expensive. So you can mix and match those under your contract. You don't have to have everybody with the same license. And usually your sales team is a little bit smaller than your service team. So you're 3-to-1, right? Or 1-to-3. Lastly, there's also some additional kind of out of the box from Salesforce. One of them is this homepage, which I love this homepage. This is what Salesforce gives the sales side. It's a very clean, it's very user friendly. So you can see then as we go down, we have goals we can set, we have pipelines on the leads object versus the opportunities. So as we go down this list, this can be the beginning of our analytics and give us some really good examples of how we can track and manage our sales process. So we can do projections and goals and budgets and all kinds of good stuff. The downside to this beautiful, wonderful homepage is that it's limited to what is standardly provided by Salesforce. So when we start building out custom fields for our clients, we can't put those custom fields in this beautiful dashboard yet. But Um, Love the visibility of it. But if nothing else, it gives us some really great ideas on some of the analytics of how we want to track and manage like our pipelines. So again, one of the benefits of having this application. And then some conversions, which we'll talk about, which is our automations. So value of the application. Does that mean that I have to have that sales application if I want to add my sales team? And the answer is no. You don't have to have. You still have to buy the additional license to get access to the additional objects. However, you could integrate it into your agency management application. And as you can see, if I pivot to one of my press or my accounts, I can also see that, objects that are in the sales app can be visible here. So it's really nice when you got a full sales team, keep them separate, right? Different apps. Doesn't mean the sales team doesn't have access to the agency management. It just isolates some of those records. But and in a lot of cases, it will also somewhat be integrated on the agency management side, like you can see here. Again, limitation of you have to have the right license with Salesforce for visibility on these custom objects or these objects from Salesforce. Okay. So on the sales side, you can see I have it set up in a linear fashion. We always start at the leads level. We'll talk through what the difference between a lead record is versus an opportunity. What happens when we convert a lead and it creates multiple different types of records, um, all the way through, right? To the sale, and then what happens when we convert. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're going to be heavy users on the sales side of our activities inside of the system. So if I pivot real quick and go into an opportunity, for example, my activities. So we talk about this a lot during onboarding and training. Activities is an umbrella term for a lot of different ways of tracking our communication. It could be emails that we're sending from the system. It could be emails that we're pushing in from our Outlook or Gmail integration. Tracking and managing that communication, really powerful on the sales side. We're going to also have our log of calls. I may, indicate if I'm making phone calls. How about some tasks? This is our due dates that we're going to track as well as events. Events here, a lot of times, are really helpful if we're having a webinar. That's a great event. That's going to be our calendar invite. So heavy usage of tracking, right? What is the communication we're having with this potential client? So we don't want to lose sight of how much we're going to be using those kind of standard CRM features alongside of our record keeping. Okay, and then we're going to talk about, like I said, some of the conversions. There's two main conversions that we're going to go through. One is your out of the box Salesforce, which is a lead conversion. And then we also have a conversion of our opportunity. So our opportunity gets closed at some point, and it's closed won, closed lost, or closed recycled. That some of this is going to convert it, move us into more custom build out that Benelinx has built for you. So what is a lead and when is it used? We have two different records for when we're managing our potential clients. So a lead, best way I can explain it, is going to be your target list. Okay. So you may when you're thinking about a list that you're purchasing, a list that you've acquired, it may be a list that you got from the chamber. I used to be heavily involved in the Boulder Chamber, and they would give us a list of their clients, right? That's a list of people that potentially might be interested in buying their insurance through Benelinx or through your agency. You could also get a list of your associations. Maybe your association members you're getting a list from them. You may purchase a leads list from like a MyEdge-ish or a ZoomInfo. Both of those, by the way, have integrations into Salesforce, so you can connect those so those leads lists come into the system automatically. That's where we're gonna manage those records, right? They're coming, it's high volume. It's going to be bulk volume of data, where it's this, I may have 500, I may have 1,000, if I've got a ZoomInfo, I may be constantly getting and feeding in from another data source, some leads records that are meeting my requirements on SIC or NPN, not NPN, or address, or industry, or association affiliation, or maybe we can get information about our 401k. filings, right? Our 5,500 filings sometimes has a lot of good information. So any of those filters and pulling all those variety of high volume records go into the leads object. Okay, so they start here. One thing I do want to mention as well, standard with buying that additional enterprise license with Salesforce, they have a couple other places that we can connect these leads. You can have a form on your website. There's a form, a standard out of the box behind the scenes and setup where you can connect a form page and it'll create a lead. You can have a Calendly. You can have schedule a meeting, and that can connect to a lead record. So there's lots of ways to connect some of your peripheral sources of getting that lead in the system. I do that internally at Benelinx. We use Salesforce, where if you go onto our website and you fill out a form, it's going to create a lead in our Salesforce. It's going to connect a Calendly invite, puts in the first and last name and the client information and some of the fields that we ask you to fill in. Really, really helpful, right? Again, less manual entry. So where can we get that information? There's a lot of connectivity and options with Salesforce to connect to the outside world where you're generating or gathering some of those potential prospects. But high volume. Okay. This is where I also um, give highly recommendation of high volume, but there could be also quite a bit that you're still kind of filtering through, right? This process of getting the leads in the Salesforce system, but then we're also going to go through a process of qualifying that lead. What are the qualification requirements? That's going to be up to you as an agency, right? Sometimes we're going to go in and along with our leads, we may be doing some other things like campaigns where we set a campaign. Maybe we have a webinar, a series of webinars. Maybe we're doing an email campaign. Those campaigns is ways for us to track and manage high volume. We're sending out marketing to hundreds or thousands, and we're gonna be able to manage and track then their level of interest. How many clicks? What are they doing in those clicks? Are they responding? Are they interested in attending? And we can track and manage that behavior, right? With a campaign that I think actually kind of goes like that next to, right? Campaigns go with leads in my world. Maybe if I can get it to move over. Yep. And so that helps us then qualify our leads. A campaign is where we start to pivot from sales into marketing. And Salesforce has the marketing cloud. We have that available for our OEM clients if you're interested. That's a new product that Salesforce is allowing Benelinx to resell. Okay, you get campaigns, which is an object. Then if you want to even go further into the marketing space, then you can do Marketing Cloud. If you're an ISV client, you can buy it directly from Salesforce because you're buying your contract and your licenses from them directly. But it's that's where we start to, deviate, right? Sales versus marketing, campaigns and marketing and all that. It then kind of moves us into the marketing space, which we won't talk too much about today. But the benefit and the reason I'm bringing it up is that you may have thousands of leads, right? And you leave them in the leads. You may have some campaigns. You've got some webinars. You've got some invites. You've got events planned. And from that, you're going to take that campaign. You're going to identify those folks that are interested and that qualify according to your qualifications, and then you're going to be able to convert them. Okay, so you're going to leave kind of this jumbled mess, I call it. Leads are a great place to keep all that over here, right? Keep them separate. You don't want them commingled with the potential clients that you're actually talking to. That's now a different object called opportunities. Took me a while to mentally be okay with this. As I started using Salesforce for sales, took me a while to agree that this was a good idea. Leads versus opportunities. I'm like, why do you have two different records for the same thing? They're very different. Leads is like high volume, dump it in, do some campaigns, push out some notices, see what kind of behaviors people that are interested are going to respond, get to the point of they're qualified. They meet our requirements, they're a legitimate business, they're a certain size, they're in a certain area, and they're interested to some degree. They're responding to some of our campaigns. Then we do that conversion. Okay. Um, other areas, let's see, my campaigns. I'm gonna pop this on my screen real quick so you can see this. So lead conversion is that's a little fuzzy, sorry. So everything I've talked about so far is leads. It comes in as a lead record. I'm going to show you what that lead record looks like. It is a hybrid of a lot of different types of fields that we're tracking all in one record. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of that, but then we'll talk about conversion. So once I've qualified, they meet my requirements, they're somewhat interested, etc. I'm going to convert. This is a standard out of the box Salesforce conversion, and that conversion is one direction. It doesn't go backwards. Okay, so once I convert a lead, I can't unconvert a lead. I can create a new lead and replicate it. There's ways to get around that, but the conversion does not go backwards. It goes one direction. When I convert a lead, it creates at the bare minimum, it creates an account and a contact. And while this is optional, I highly recommend it creating an opportunity because the opportunity is my sales process. A qualified lead to sold. So two minimum field records get created from the one. One lead goes away, that disappears out of your system permanently, and it creates an account with the account information. It creates a contact with the contact information, and optionally, but highly recommended, it also creates that third record, which is your opportunity, which is now a secondary sales process. Okay, so let's take a look at the lead record first. Short and sweet, right? You'll see that there's not a heavy amount of volume of record keeping. Trying to get salespeople into a sales system is hard enough, but we want to keep it short and simple and sweet and effective, right? So demographic wise, this is the information that we're collecting and or is getting pushed in from other sources. But you'll see right off the bat, we have a variety of different types of fields that we're tracking different information. The name is going to be the name of a person. So that's kind of contact related information, right? When I think about it, company information is your business details, right? And then even down here, we start having information that might be relative and relevant for our sales process. For better, for worse, we're going to have every lead has to have a last name and a company. What does that mean in our world, our B2B world? Sometimes that can get frustrating because you may have one company with multiple contacts, and that's going to create multiple leads. I'm going to show you how we can move them all together when we convert a lead. We can merge them. We don't have to create multiple accounts. We don't have to create multiple opportunities, but at the lead record level, it is going to be for every person, even if I have three people that I'm talking to, or that I have I have a lead record for, same company is going to be three records. Why do they do that? Well, one of the logical reasons they do that is because when I'm sending a campaign out, I have to send it to a person. So a lead, part of that marketing, when you think about the marketing, okay, that now it starts to make sense why they did that, right? It's not because it's a B2C, it's a B2B, but still we're going to have multiple leads and we got to get used to the fact we may have multiple leads for the same company. It's one of the deal breakers for some people. They're like, I'm out. Well, you don't have to use the lead object if you don't want, but that's the reasoning. If you're bringing that in from a Zoom info, that's the way that they're managing it. So it's kind of the reality because we're sending out campaigns and invites to the people. So it does have to kind of be per person. Then in general, we have our process. You can see really simple, right? Brand new. Came over from Zoom info, basic information. During this process, right, something is going to engage with this lead and it's going to be a qualifying process. Are we researching? Have we sent out a campaign? Have we contacted them? What was their responsiveness, right? We can track and manage that. If we add campaigns, we can add that here. And at some point, we're either going to identify them as unqualified. Nope. Their home office is in Europe. Okay. They're not qualified. They just sold their business. Or they get converted. Okay. Once we convert, again, it's a one direction. It's a one-way street. It goes from leads. The lead record disappears. So once we convert, we cannot unconvert. I can create a new one, but that doesn't go backwards in the process, like I said. But we can track and manage all of our activities. So if we're doing some heavy manual lead management. A lot of times campaigns help so we don't have to because high volume. Then we're going to track and manage the emails that went out, if there's any follow-ups, etc. When do you convert? A lot of times businesses are asking their sales team not to convert. This is great. You can decide, but the conversion is usually somewhere around I've got a meeting either scheduled or I've actually met with them. I do this inside of the Benelinx system, and I found it's the pros and cons, right? What if there's a no-show? So a lot of times the conversion will happen after the demo already took place. Okay, because I can't go backwards, so I can't undo them. And so a lot of times that line of whatever you define, when do I convert? Maybe post initial meeting versus scheduled. It's up to you, right? But definitive, A, they qualify and they're engaging. And we've had a definitive, some type of commitment to continue the conversation, however you want to define that. Okay. Couple things about conversions. Like I said, it's a one-way street. It goes from a lead, the lead record disappears once I convert, and it's going to create an account and a contact no matter what. And then an opportunity, which is continuing that sales process. The account information, company information will go to the account, right? When I split this, it's going to put all of the information on this record in the right places. It's going to say, oh, that looks like the account information. I'm going to put the company information in the account. Other information that is very specific to a person is going to be pushed into the contact record. So it's going to split where the information goes from this one record and know where to put it. And when I go to that conversion, you can see it's giving me those options. So a couple things it's doing here. It's telling me I'm about ready to create 3 different records for you. It's also giving me the option to not create. Don't create that opportunity if I don't want to, right? That's that third, but this continues that sales process. So I highly recommend it. It also allows me, if I have multiple leads, I can actually go look for that same exact, right? That same exact, can't type today, client, if it's already there, and I can choose instead of this record and creating a new one, if I want to attach it to an existing. So in that example, if I have three leads and I'm converting it, right? I have to convert it 3 times, move them all over. But in this case, I'm going to attach it to the already an existing, and maybe I'm just going to create a new contact. So all those 3 people will go under one account, but create 3 different contacts. So there's ways to, when I convert, it cleans it up, right? Those 3 records that are 3 independent. Now, when I convert it 3 times, I'm going to have one account. It's actually going to be the barrel company, and I'll create 3 independent contacts under that one, and then maybe I have one unique opportunity. Okay, so there's ways to clean it up. Like I said, if you're frustrated about the fact that it does have 3, convert it, and now we're going to create, let's see. I'm just going to put July 2026. I'm going to create 3 different records. I'm going to convert it. I've met with them. They're qualified. And now I'm going to move them out of the bucket of all kinds of things into now they're qualified. I'm actually going to be meeting with them, and I've got a sales process and a pipeline to manage from this point forward. Couple things I recommend too. See where there's a dash here. By default, Salesforce puts a dash. What that is doing is it's asking us to put something else. I highly recommend putting in this opportunity before it creates the record, some indicator of when this group would be making a decision. Is it their effective date? A lot of times that's the indicator, right? I'm talking to them now, but if they're going to make a decision, they're going to make it for July 2026. Okay. And now I convert. Once I've converted it, it creates those 3 records. See? Boom, boom, boom. And now I can take a look at all 3 records if I want. I can jump right into my opportunity. And now you can see a whole different process to move them through my own sales cycle. Okay. And I can also see it created an account for me. Demographics sets the prospect as or type as prospect, and any additional information from that account that I have gathered on as a salesperson or that got gathered for me, right, from my Zoom info or from my website, and it needs to live under my account will get copied over. It also copies over my contact information, right? Melody is a person and her email or phone number and all that good stuff go under that, as well as now my opportunity. And my opportunity is my sales process. Why does it break it into three? Well, it makes sense when it converts it, right? Because now I'm going to meet with them. I'm going to probably do on a proposal. I may be doing a market analysis. And once I split that up, the demographics of that account are never going to change. Never. Not often going to change, right? The address of the business doesn't change often. The SIC code doesn't change. So as your sales team is doing that fact finding, the information gathering, they're learning more and more about this client. The information that they're going to fill in may be, oh yeah, market size. I know what market size this is. This is this is an elephant. Great. And what was that? July. I'm moving that over. I'm going to fill in the information, my SIC code, whatever else is required, right? Let's put me in there. Okay. Right. So now as I'm getting more and more information, I'm going to fill that in. My sales team's going to fill that in. You know, the benefit is once this gets sold, all that information is in the right place for your service team, which always ulterior motives, right? My contacts are now information. I've got my main Melody. If I go back to my lead and I've got another person, I can convert it, put it under the same account. Don't create a new one. And now Tom is going to be under here as well. So I'm starting to get my decision makers. And thirdly, this is the voluntary one, but this one is the most important in my mind. This is my sales process. I've got an opportunity to sell this client for July of this year. Here is the process I'm going to go through to get them closed in one way, shape, or form. Here are the things I'm going to track and manage. And look, here's my person. I can still see my person. I can add more. And now I'm going to start tracking some of the steps, information of where I'm at with meeting with the client. Am I going to propose? Did we jump right over that? I got a BOR, right? And again, all of the activities that I'm going to use to track and manage the communication. The email. Oh, love this. Push the email in. I can see. John emailed me, said, love your demo, want to get a quote. Great. I send the quote. I push the email in. Follow up with me next Tuesday, Rachel. Great. I'm going to put in here, follow up next Tuesday. I can put in a bunch of information. Maybe I need to send the quote. I have a due date. I may want to assign it to somebody else. Maybe they're helping me get the quote ready. And it's tracking and managing that whole process. Files and notes, drag and drop information. Maybe they send me something and I want to put that information into, again, I'm putting it into my opportunity record. I'm not putting it in my account because this is the record related to my prospect where this is part of the sales process, right? If I sent them the BOR letter, I'm going to put it here in my email and drag and drop that file potentially. Any specific notes, something interesting about them. They love cats. They don't love cats. They love going golfing. Their birthday is in July, just like mine. Whatever, any notes and important information where you can have multiple records where you're documenting, right? And we have da-da-da-da, and record keeping, right? It's time stamped, which I like. Okay. This is the sales process. This may look like your process. This may not look like your process. This is where you're going to create, if you haven't already, you're going to create a repeatable process, right? People ask me, why would I use sales when I just get my referrals come in and I'm like, well, do you have sales team? Yes, I have a couple salespeople. Do you have good salespeople? Yes, there's people that are really, really good and there's people that are not so good. Okay. What makes them successful, right? What are they doing to make them successful? And what are the people that are not successful doing? Break that down into steps and stages and process, right? And now we have not only are we creating an agency specific sales process that we know is successful because it's been used prior and we have a history of success with that. We also have a repeatable process. We have a consistency, and we bring in those new salespeople and they're hungry, but they don't have that down, that process down. Now we have a training platform to bring in other salespeople and make them successful as well, help them be as successful as our seasoned veterans. Okay. That's why we do this. Part of it, right? And it's also transparency, right? The other big, big, big piece of this is now we've got visibility and transparency to the service team. Who are we prospecting? Where are we at with the sales process? How many opportunities are really close to closing? And is that at the same time as our very high volume renewal season? We have to now prepare for adding 20 new clients the same time as we're renewing. That management visibility is super powerful and really important. Okay. So this opportunity is giving us that history. Okay. If I go back to my account, I can see that opportunity here. I can go in. If I'm a salesperson, I am most likely, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in leads. Leads are kind of messy. They're coming from a lot of places, right? I'm hopefully going to have a campaign or two. It's going to help me move those into a smaller list. The opportunity list should be significantly smaller because these are people I'm actually talking to. Okay. And I'm going to spend most of my time then in my opportunities, and I'm going to be able to see my opportunities in my list view. And I like the Kanban view. Wow, look at this. Rosa helped me load some data this morning. Thank you, my dear. But isn't this beautiful? Look at this. I love this. This starts getting into the numbers game and analytics, which I love. So now I can see it's rolling up my expected revenue. And if I sell all of my potential clients in my qualification phase, that equals $284,000 revenue. Ooh, that's great. All the way down through, right? And so as I'm moving these guys and we're moving them, look at that. Ooh, I like to load that up. Ooh, we've got a lot of business in that prospect or quoting, right? That gives me so much information and it gives me visibility as I'm moving them through. Most of us probably won't have this many, but it's really helpful to see some of the things that the system will automatically quantify for us. I'm tracking and managing at the stage level. And I'm also then rolling up a summary of my anticipated revenue. And now my job as a salesperson is going to move them from qualified to closed won. I'm going to move those through. And in a perfect world, that lead gen, that qualification machine, that engine is going to keep pushing them my way. And my focus is going to be the people I'm talking to. And my job is to get them from, we know they're qualified. We know that they're interested in some level because they've responded. Now my job is to keep them interested, keep them hungry, move them in our direction through whatever process that we have and get them closed won. That's the hyper focusing of the sales team, and it should be a lot smaller list than the leads. The leads should not be moved over until they have been qualified. And like I said, in a perfect world, we have a marketing, you know, arm that is just churning those and going through that high volume and finding those that are interested and qualified and move them in. Okay. So conversion, right? So now we're tracking our process, right? Now we've got our actual sales process. This is when we're engaging with, we're having multiple meetings, we're doing some type of analysis, we might be doing a proposal, right? There might be a little bit of negotiating, review of, onboarding our process, and then we're closing this because this is where we get to our secondary step. This is our next conversion. Salesforce standardly gives us this really great field that nowhere else in the system has. I've had clients ask me to replicate it, custom. But you can see there's a couple different options here. So closed won. That is one. That is they have given us the go ahead that now they're moving their business or they're going to be buying the services or policies from your agency. Highly recommend. I always say don't jinx yourself till you get that BOR sign in hand. Conversion then, right? And there's some automation that goes along with this. When I close win, what happens? And I save this. It's going to close this opportunity. It's going to flip my account to enforce. It's going to send an email notification to my company if I wish. It has an announcement. Hey, we got a new client. Woohoo! You can do that on a Friday afternoon. You get that BOR letter, you walk out of that meeting. You can go on your phone. Remember, salespeople, Salesforce has has an app. I can hit that button right on my phone. And it also creates a secondary. It creates an onboarding process. So not only does it send an announcement, it also then sends a notification to your service team, whoever you want us to designate to whom. Sometimes it goes to a manager, so then they can distribute new business across multiple account managers, account executives. But it also creates the beginning of a new process, our onboarding workflow automatically. So that Friday afternoon, BR letter in hand, woohoo, gonna go have a happy hour, push the button, sends announcement to the team, the company, also sends a secondary. Got a new client, onboarding workflow is, we need to start that on Monday morning. And here's our process. Maybe we send a welcome email. We do an internal huddle with our team, right? We go through everything that's in the system. We already have our account information. We already have our contacts. We already even have access to our opportunities. Great stuff, right? We have a lot of information that used to be on a napkin or on a spreadsheet over here, and now you got to translate to your service team. If it's in the same place, a lot less communication, a lot less miscommunication, a lot less redundancy of moving information into now your system. It's already there. It's been building as you go. You've been adding data as you've learned about now that conversion and that transition is much smoother. And I'm telling you, if you don't think the clients can see that, guaranteed they do. If I'm a customer of yours and you've asked me for my tax ID number and that transition goes to the service team and that service team asks me for my tax ID number again, I'm going to have a little mental note to self, right? How come they didn't tell? How come the salesperson didn't tell the service team? They see it. They feel it, whether it be emotional or real. They sense the transition. They sense, they can see it, they understand that transition is smoother. There's less of them redoing the same information again, right? And there's a lot more accuracy. So it is powerful. Okay, let's go back to an opportunity. So that was the first process. Now I go back. Oop, that one's already closed. Uh, let's go to all here. All right. Now let's say we're going through, we've proposed, this happens a lot in our industry, right? We go back, we're closing. Client says, that was a fabulous proposal. I love everything that you showed me. However, we are a week and a half away from our renewal, and we're going to have to renew as is this year, but call me again. And this time, call me. Let's start talking in August instead of September. So we don't want to close lost, right? Necessarily. Close lost is different, right? We want to make sure we define that. Talk about that in a minute. But if they say call me later, that's not really closed lost. But it's not really closed won. And do I just leave my opportunity open forever and ever? Don't recommend that. Don't recommend that. I might lose that battle, but I don't recommend it. What I would prefer is this third option that we've added for our clients, for our industry, is closed recycled. What that does is it's going to close the record behind me. So I've got the old record I'm closing, but it's going to create a new one and it's going to advance that new opportunity ahead a year. I'm going to change this. Remember when I told you when you build an opportunity, put some indicator in the opportunity name so you know the time frame. Let's just make this one June 2026. Or let's do 6/1. Okay. All right. So this one's going to be closed. Okay. Too late. Call me next year. We want to close this record. Why? Because there's going to be a delay and we're going to re-engage and we're probably going to have to go through the same process. That's why I recommend you closing it. Close recycled though, not close lost. So if I go here and I go close recycled, it's going to close the old record. Okay. It's going to create a new record for me and it's going to advance it. Okay. And it's going to pull it off of that close date. So this one's closed recycled. It's creating a secondary record. So now I have a brand new record. When it's time, we can even add automation that creates a task for you to follow up, 2 or 3 months in advance. So lots of ways. But what we're doing is we're creating a secondary record. Close the old one. There's a delay. It's October right now. They said, call me back in August. I want to close that. I want to get them off my pipeline or set up into my pipeline so it's back to the qualification. Because the reality is, still going to have to go through that. We're going to re-engage and we're still going to go through this process. In addition, trust me when I tell you this, because I've worked in Salesforce long enough now, I like to see my history and I like to see those closed. If I have met with a prospect and I've done a lot of work for them, I'm going to see all that information here in this old record. And it's not going to get commingled with when I re-engage with them and I've got a whole new dialogue. Maybe that person's gone. I've got a new person. Things change. They say, call me in 3 months, 6 months, but there's a lot of things that change. So I want a fresh record to put all the new information in when I meet with them, when I've got next steps, when I've got new emails, and it's a fresh record. And as you can see, I have multiple opportunities. Now I can go back in time and I can see, what did I talk to them about last time? And it's not commingled with, oh, now I've got a new record and everything new that we're talking about is going to be in this fresh record. So really, really recommend. Don't be afraid to close. However, we found this cool little thing called Close Recycled. So now I can attach and I can see my old and my new, but I'm creating a new record. The system's doing it for me. So I'm not really closing done. Sorry. Okay. Final is going back. And if I go back to, and I've got close lost. That's when it's done. I don't want to look at them again. They're off my plate permanently. When would that happen? They got bought. They got acquired. They moved out of country, out of state. That keeps things cleaner, right? So now my clothes lost are actually like I don't have to worry about going back through that list later and kind of weeding through all the clothes lost and figure out which ones actually aren't closed. A lot of times in this closed lost, we will go through and put a reason so we know merger, acquisition, etc. Okay, so we have 3 different options now instead of just 2. Because what was happening when we only had 2, which was standard Salesforce, close, lost, close, won, people weren't closing anything till it was 1. And what happens now is that we have artificially inflated our opportunity tracking, and or we're closing records that shouldn't be closed, and now we're going to have to go back through those and requalify them and move them back. So that recycled option is a really powerful 3rd option to consider. Excuse me. Okay. Sales process. And you can see that conversion. Let's just throw this up here so you can take a look at this. So you can see those 3 options. Converts the account, email announcements, and creates that onboarding workflow, which by the way is custom Benelinx. Starts that service process. What do we have to do to onboard them? We got to get some additional information. We may have to actually go through the quoting process. Permanent closed, right? You define that. Close last reason, and then recycled, okay? Connects the old record to the new, creates a new record, archives the old one. Now I've got a history, and I've got a new recycled opportunity back to the qualifying stages. And a lot of cool things we can do there with task management and adding in notifications for reminders. What all that does is that keeps my opportunities nice and clean and it keeps it concise. I now have a defined list of people I'm talking through that I'm moving through that system until we get them to one or the other. Either they're going to be If they're qualified, unless something goes awry, right? Which happens, in the middle of a conversation, they get acquired. That's a close lost. I'm either going to get them in a close one or I'm going to recycle them and we're going to talk to them again. We have some clients that, no client is ever gone. So, when, you lose a client, maybe, then that can flip it right back to a prospect, an opportunity. So there's lots of ways to recycle some of that. Again, the additional existing information. If that's your philosophy, they're always going to be, right? Then there's ways that we can automate that as well for you. But tracking and managing and qualifying. And the idea is having a very concise process and having a very concise list, right? So we don't have hundreds of opportunities. Each salesperson has a handful. There's only so many meetings we can have in a defined period of time before it's too late, right? We have timelines and deadlines unless it's a brand new business, right? But when we have effective dates and renewal dates, those are our hard deadlines. If we don't get some action taken by their renewal date, it's going to get pushed to the next year, right? If they're brand new business and they're super small, you don't have those, and that can drag out your sales process kind of forever. Because until they have an effective date that renews, that is a hard deadline. Okay. Real quick, just want to remind again is that all of this is giving us that tracking, the activities, the emails, the tasks, the events. Did they go to a webinar? Yeah, I can see that they attended. Notes and files. So all of that, again, gives us that history and all the information about, and again, related to my account, everything about those conversations, with whom I had those conversations and what we talked about and what process we went through. Reports and dashboards. Okay. So everything that we're tracking and managing is where we roll that all up and again into our dashboards and reports. So when we think about what are we tracking and why, helps us go into reports and dashboards that allow us to understand what is our budget, what is our investment in our marketing, right? Well, it depends on how many convert and how much does that give us new business? Chicken or the egg? I deal with that challenge every day as a business owner. If I invest in marketing, what is my return eventually on that investment? Well, how many sales did we get? If I double my sales, that investment is worthwhile. But I have to invest first for me to see that return on my investment, right? I can set goals. I love this. Setting goals. What do we have as goals? Is it about scheduling meetings? How many is my monthly annual goals? Have I met them? Do I need to make calls? How many calls are the goals and do I meet them? I can track and manage all that. Forecasting. What are we planning? Wow, we have a ton of stuff in a pipeline. How many more account managers are we going to need? How do we divvy up those closed new opportunities? How are we forecasting for the future? How do I know what to plan for if I don't track that? Right? If I see it, now I can manage that. Holy cow, we got a bunch of business coming up. We're already in the proposal stage. Our probability is 90% sales. I need to start recruiting and hiring another AEAM team, maybe even. Right? Volume. What are we doing? What is our close ratio? We get a lot of opportunities here, and then our close ratio is 5%. What's happening? What's going on? How do we get this far and then don't get it closed? What is happening during our sales process where we get that close and then they go somewhere else or they decide not to move with us? How do we dig into that part of our process and define where the problems are? What are the roadblocks? How do we eliminate those roadblocks to get them moved into that process? What is the timing for us from qualified to closed? How long are we going through the sales process? We need to open and close them to track timing, right? So that's another reason why we want to track and close those and reopen them. Anybody have habitual quoters? We did. We'd talk to a potential client next year. Oops, sorry. Oh, it's my brother-in-law, but I really loved what you had offer. Call me next year, quote, quote, quote. At what point do you blacklist them? right? Um, or, have a different conversation. And so again, all the visibility in the world. And you can see that transition now. Where does the life cycle start? It does not start at the agency management side. Okay. It starts at the sales side. Okay. At some way, shape, or form, we're getting a new client, and there is some form of a process, right? And so if we're looking at holistically, how do I manage my entire business? It really includes not only the management of existing, the management of the revenue, but our expected revenue and our process and our sales and high growth clients like you guys that are looking to continually to grow and take over the world like we are. You're going to want to multiply your sales team. You're going to want to have more than just you on the sales side. And with that comes creating a pipeline and a process. Some of it is an investment, right? This is an investment. It's an additional cost. Marketing is an investment. What does that give us? What's the ROI? What is our process? How do we understand where we're at? And if we can become really crazy efficient with our sales process and we find that diamond in the rough of what works for us, a repeatable process, I can bring in multiple salespeople into a process. And we've got now multiple success stories, multiple levels of success, different team members, not just one or two. We're creating also a legacy sales team that as your sales folks retire, we all want to retire someday. I'm getting closer and closer to that every day. We've backfilled for that success to continue and to evolve. So that's the sales. That's our presentation. Last. Do not miss the next session. We have a brand new feature we're going to talk about. It's the RFP tracking. That also includes a new partner of Benelinx that we're going to announce. You guys have probably heard me talk about a little bit already. And it will be on June 9th. And we will go through what that new feature is and the importance of it and how we're bringing in another option to take less peripheral systems and bring them all into one place. And that actually includes this next one session is going to be about emails. If I can bring the sending and receiving of secure emails into the Salesforce system, I don't have that extra system out here that doesn't give my team visibility. If I'm sending emails out of my Outlook, unless I push them in, nobody can see them. If I send in and receive emails within Salesforce, that visibility is opened up. And there's automation and beautiful things coming with that. So hope you can join us for that session, and recording will be available shortly after. Rose has been amazing, and invites. All right. Thank you guys. Have a great Monday, Tuesday. All right. Bye-bye.